All right, 10 seconds. We are live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the virtual town hall meeting. I'm Campus Registrar Dawn Rady Fugil, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon's proceedings. We will also have a technical moderator from our Marketing and Communications Office, Chanel Glasgow. Thank you for joining us. As the country deals with the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, the UWI St. Augustine remains committed to playing our part in ensuring the health and well-being of our students first and foremost. At this time, we truly hope that you and your families are staying safe and following the guidelines. We note that as a regional institution, many of you have returned home and you are joining us from across the region and the world. Some of you, we also note, are on halls and were unable to return to your home country, and others, our nationals, are between our twin islands, and we recognize you. To all, welcome. Of course, we are also concerned with your academic progress. During this town hall, we will be discussing issues pertaining to examinations, campus continuity, and other student matters. We have called this meeting because we understand that this is a difficult time and that you're worried about the potential impact of COVID-19 on your academic progress and your physical and mental health. We do not take your concerns lightly. Since the start of the coronavirus outbreak, the campus has been steadily working to find the right approach, first to secure our people, and then to maintain our academic and quality and standards and provide you with the best support for your holistic growth during this time. Given these unprecedented circumstances, significant adjustments were made, and we know you have many questions. At this town hall, student matters will be addressed. I ask for your patience in advance with this virtual format in case you run into any technical difficulties. Allow me to acknowledge the other persons virtually present here today, including members of Executive Management, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal, Brian Copeland, Deputy Principal, Professor Inda Ramnarayan, Campus Bursar, Mrs. Andrea Taylor-Hanna, Campus Librarian, Mr. Frank Sudin, Head of our Committee of Deans and Dean of Law, Professor Rosemary Bellantwine, Acting Deputy Registrar, Patricia Brown, and our AR from Exams, Admissions, UG and PG, the Director for Graduate Studies and Research, Professor Sitha Raman, Head of the Health Service Unit, Dr. Neil Singh, Manager OSH, Mr. Rajesh Kanhai, our Director of Student Services and Development, Dr. Charles, Deidre Charles, and our Director of Marketing Communications, Mrs. Vinel Gregorio. I would now like to invite our campus principal, Professor Brian Copeland, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Campus Registrar. I would like to say a hearty good afternoon to all students and all those who are joining us on this virtual town hall. Students in particular, but also all the staff who are supporting us in going through these very unprecedented times. I want to express, first of all, my gratitude to the student body at large, because I know that the past few weeks have been very, very trying, extremely difficult for our community, and perhaps especially so for our students. I want to take this special opportunity to thank you for your dedication, your commitment, your perseverance, and your support of one another, and the many contributions you continue to make to our campus and regional university. I want to express gratitude in particular to the Guild of Students. They have been working as a partner with administration. They have been fulfilling the mandate of ensuring that the student voice and all constituents are considered at all levels of decision making. They have been critical when they had to and supportive when they needed to be. Okay, just 1 minute. Okay, there we go. All right, you should be hearing me clearer now. Okay, great. Sorry for that glitch. It's part of the world in which we live now. So once again, thank you to our Going Guild president, that's Justin Sabero, and incoming Guild president Warren Anderson. I did say that they have been critical when they needed to be, very forceful when they needed to be, and understanding when they needed to be, all in mature conversation and collaboration. I think the future augurs well with young people such as yourselves and the Guild of Students in charge. I need to acknowledge the difficulties of learning a new format. I'm well aware of the fact that many of you signed up. In fact, everyone signed up, assuming that we're in a face-to-face mode. There are some programs that were in an online mode from the get-go. Having to suddenly transition in what I call an emergency remote work situation is not easy for anybody, whether it be a student, whether it be staff. And certainly that has shown itself to be true over the last few weeks. Working in this mode requires a different kind of discipline, different ways of communicating, and the use of different tools or software. And it would therefore be helpful if you can share how we can support you better in this session. In fact, we've gotten some very, very good recommendations and suggestions from students over the last few weeks. I wanted to touch a bit on how the campus has responded to this, what some people are calling, I've called it World War III. Certainly came in a very sneaky and insidious way. We have formed what we call an incident management team. I need to understand that this is a team, it's a sort of a standing team that was created some 2 years ago to treat with incidents such as this. Any surprise or crisis situation that visited the campus, this team will be called into action to start making sure that the campus remains ready to deliver once times come back to a fair level of normalcy. It is a scalable team. This membership is adjusted depending on the particular scenario. As campus principal, I am incident commander for this team, so I oversee all the activities of that team. Consistent with the incident command system used internationally, this team seeks to manage and mitigate crises under any emergencies. All universities of Marywood have incident management teams. In March, therefore, this team was called into action, and we developed a pandemic response plan as part of our response system. And that plan identified different levels of seriousness, if you like, as vis-a-vis the coronavirus and the COVID-19 disease that accompanies it. In fact, we were at level 1 when the Prime Minister decided to go to a lockdown mode, and we very quickly had to escalate the plan to make sure we kept in step with the nation's plans. But coming out of that, once we developed that plan, we started to look beyond COVID, because there will come a time when this crisis is behind us for the most part. And we developed a business continuity plan, which dealt with working remotely, online teaching, and the like. It's a difficult plan to construct and maintain because we really and truly don't know all of the parameters. We received word from our COVID task force that was formed by the university. This is all the university combined. I call it the UIverse. That this crisis may well be with us well into August of this year, and that there will be, until such time as a vaccine is created, there will be sporadic outbreaks going into January of next year. So that means that we don't know how it's going to go. We don't know when the vaccine will be developed. We have to plan different develop different contingency plans for different scenarios. Every business in Trinidad and Tobago, every household in Trinidad and Tobago basically is faced with the same challenge. The business continuity policy guidelines, therefore, outlines the pandemic response arrangements that will best ensure the health and safety of the campus community. That was a first priority, and reduce the level of compromise to the business of the UE after the pandemic is behind us. It is well known that crises of this sort changes the entire landscape of a society. And one of the imperatives we saw was making sure that UE keeps alive in a position where it can deliver on its mandate after the COVID crisis is behind us. So that's the issue of business continuity. We meet twice a week and we troubleshoot and plan as needs be. I wanted to emphasize a next focus for us going forward, and it has to do with scenario planning. Now that we are into the COVID sort of crisis itself, we have an idea as to how we should be responding in the now. We have to look to the future. I'm happy to say that we have, in fact, discussed this. And while we don't have plans in place, we have plans to plan. And part of it will include you as students. It is your future that we'll be planning. So you will see us coming to you, those in the Guild in particular, to organize discussions among the youth about what that future will be 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, after this COVID experience. And that future starts off by looking at society and then looking at how the University of the West Indies must place itself to support that new society that will be formed. I want to turn the microphone over to Deputy Principal Ramnarayan so he can speak to the student support components of our response. So, Professor Ramnarayan.
Thanks very much, Principal, and good afternoon, everyone, particularly our students and, of course, our colleagues. I wanted to speak with you about student matters and what we have been doing. I know students are very stressed at this time. We could understand that. And they're very concerned about whether their semester is going to be completed and what form of exams we are going to have. But I wish to start at the beginning, and I wish to start at March 12th. This is when our first COVID case was diagnosed. The following day, March 13th, the Honorable Prime Minister declared that schools would be closed for 1 week at the first instance. But we thought that it meant that schools and universities would be closed for much longer than that, based on what was happening internationally. And we all know that the closure of schools extended until the 20th of April, then the 30th, and now we have been told that schools remain closed until the 30th of September. But at this time, March the 13th, that was the end of the 8th week of teaching. So we had completed 8 weeks of teaching with only 4 to go. And it was really important that we try our best to complete this semester. So what we did is that we decided to switch to online teaching. In fact, many of the lecturers who did some of the training courses at Center for Excellence for Teaching and Learning were already trained in online teaching. So those switched immediately to online teaching. But those who had no experience, we organized training courses again with Settle, head by Dr. Margot Burns, a 1 week training course for you to be able to teach online. So most faculties would have recommenced teaching on the 25th of March. In order to allow students to access online classes, we have to remove the AR holds, the accounts receivable holds. Many students had these holds, so we decided that all these holds will be removed. What we also did was ramp up our services to our students through the Division of Student Services and Development. And we arranged with CAPS, that's the Counseling and Psychological Services, to switch from face-to-face counseling sessions to online sessions via telephone or via Skype. And they are working every day. There are 6 counselors in that division, and students simply need to make an appointment by emailing them, and they can have these sessions. The health services unit is currently open twice per week, on a Thursday and a Tuesday in the morning session. And our other student services department, student life and development department, and financial services are operating online. We were particularly concerned about our students in hall because, it means that there were lots of students in those 5 halls. So we encouraged the local students to return home, and many of them did. We also encouraged the regional students to go back to their countries. We helped them book the tickets. For a few of them who couldn't afford it, we arranged financial assistance. And we also transported them to the airport to make sure that they got out safely. So at the moment, there are 99 students in the hall. We are operating only just 2 halls. The Joyce Gibson Hall has 19 students, mainly Met-Sci students. And the Sir Arthur Lewis Hall has 80 students. I mean, most of these are regional students. We have been taking care of these students. We have been arranging transport to the supermarkets and the pharmacies for them, so they don't need to organize their own transport. We are doing that for them. So we have now switched to online classes, as I would have mentioned. We also conducted a survey through marketing and communication to determine how this is going, how these online classes are going, what problems the students are facing, whether they have proper access and so forth. And we were concerned to see that quite a few students had problems with the internet in terms of the unreliability of access. And also some students did not have computers. So we have been working with the Guild in order to source computers and distribute it to those students who actually need computers. We've also arranged with B-Mobile and Digicel, and this is led by Mr. Nazir Aladdin, the Chief Information Officer, to have internet zero-rated in terms of access to the UE website, MyLearning and so forth. So the person can still attend classes once they have access to a smartphone. Now, I know students, your main concern is with the semester and what happens to exams. So we've had to revise the dates for the semester. We have extended the teaching period to the 8th of May, and the exam period will start on the 25th of May. So we are given a clear 2 weeks between the end of teaching to the beginning of exams. And exams will end on the 19th of June. So we have also extended an exam period by 1 week. So traditionally it has been 3 weeks. Now it's going to be 4 weeks. We have moved away from face-to-face exams. Of course, we can't have face-to-face exams. So we had to look at alternative forms of assessment. And this was a major undertaking. It was led by the Board for Undergraduate Studies. We had several meetings and we decided on how we should approach this. But there were some principles that we needed to ensure that were followed. And these are the principles of integrity, fairness, equity and inclusiveness, ethics and safety, and preservation of regionality. So what is going to happen is that during the exam period, there will be alternative forms of assessment. This could be in the form of essays, take-home essays, new coursework, assignments, projects, take-home open book exams, and a variety of assessment tools. And for most of these assignments, we are given a fair amount of time, anywhere between 2 to 7 days for students to complete these assignments. The assignments will have to be uploaded through MyLearning, and students will have to sign a declaration stating that it's their own work and that they have not plagiarized. And of course, these assignments need to pass through Turnitin. Now, there are some students who might not be ready to have these exams or alternative assessments. So we are putting a mechanism in place for students who want to defer those exams. We allow them to defer those exams. And you simply need to contact the dean of your faculty to ask for deferral of those exams. We have also decided that we'll keep those AR holds removed until the end of the exam period, which is June the 19th. So students will be able to do their assignments, upload their exams or their assignments and so forth. We have also extended the payment plan. Many students are on payment plan. So we have extended the payment plan until June the 19th. So students who need an extension, you need to contact Mr. Kevin Kalu at the student account section of the bursary. We have also proposed a category in the, according to the exam regulations, fail no penalty. So for students who might have had issues and maybe something went wrong and they did not pass, what we are proposing, and this has to be approved by the Board for Undergraduate Studies, we are suggesting a category of fail no penalty. So it means that there will be this grade, this failing grade will not count towards your GPA. So what this means is that the student will not go on warning in terms of academic standing, and the students will not go on required to withdraw because of that fail no penalty decision. We are also allowing some students who will have problems in completing their project work. These are students from the Faculty of Engineering in particular, and maybe some other faculties. For those who had research to do or had projects to do, who cannot complete these projects, we are going to use the grade designation incomplete. And this gives the students additional time. In fact, the time is until the end of the following semester to complete that project. And of course, the grade will be uploaded at that time. We have also agreed that the summer session will continue. And we have given those dates as June the 22nd to August the 21st, because some students require some in order to complete courses and so forth. But there are also some programs where a third trimester is built in. And so we're also going to have that during that summer period. Students might also be concerned about graduation. Normally graduation will be around October. So the university is considering postponing graduation until January of the following year. Again, this will allow students to complete their programs and be able to graduate. But again, this still has to be discussed and approved. So basically, these are the comments I want to make in terms of what we have been doing for the students. We are very concerned about you, about your health, your safety, your mental state. And I know you are very concerned about completing the semester and being able to do exams. So we're doing our best in working with you, working with the Guild to make sure that we can achieve what we have set out to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Principal. That was very, very informative. And I hope that students realize that we are really trying our best to ensure that they can complete this semester, even as they take care of their health and strength and mental well-being. I wanted to wrap up speaking to a couple of issues. One is the issue of personal responsibility in this time. And I need not remind you that we are all in this together. It is our collective responsibility to keep our friends, our colleagues, our campus, our community, and our nation safe. And the government certainly has played its part in putting the systems in place to ensure that it's so. It is equally important that you treat your colleagues and neighbors with empathy. This virus knows no nationality, it knows no ethnic backgrounds. It is likely that many of you know someone or have a relative at home or abroad who is quarantined, or you will learn of one of your classmates or lecturers who has the virus. When that happens, we must continue to treat everyone with compassion and with kindness. Now is the time to come together and contain and defeat this virus. UWI's COVID efforts, let's speak a little bit about that. And I think that if you've been paying attention to the media, you would have seen the many ways in which your regional and your local university has been stepping up to support the war effort. Staff and your peers and alumni have all been called to serve. A special salute then to our students who are working on the front line, and there are a few of them who are directly involved, for example, in contact tracing. And to those on the ground in your community supporting wherever they can. I want to acknowledge the work of our staff. Our staff members continue to plug on to respond to your needs and are dedicated to delivering services and supporting your continued success. And this applies to both academic and administrative staff. We implore you to stay connected, especially in this time. The St. Augustine Campus COVID-19 website, as well as the UWI COVID-19 Task Force website, are regularly updated with useful information, advisories, and resources on the evolving pandemic. I invite you to visit them on a very regular basis. So let me wrap up then by saying that this pandemic has certainly created a shift in all our lives, but your ability to adapt to and evolve with these unexpected challenges has brought to light your strength, your ingenuity, and your resilience. If you look back at history, those students of history will tell you that it's times of crises like this that has shaped the progress of mankind. And if you look at what the so-called pundits are saying about the future post-COVID, it certainly looks like the world will be a very, very, very different place, for which we all have to be prepared. These circumstances are disruptions, but you are exactly the kind of students who will rise to the occasion. You are UWI students. We will find our way through this together. And with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to return the microphone to our campus registrar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, campus principal and deputy principal. We've now reached a question and answer segment of our town hall session. But before we start, I want to indicate the rules of engagement and protocol during today's town hall question and answer segment. You would have received an email inviting you to submit your questions ahead of today's meeting. Those questions will be addressed first before our live Q&A portion. Please, when sending your questions, indicate your first name and your faculty. Before I move on to address a couple of the questions that we got online, I just wanted to reiterate some of the basis on which was contained in the communication that was sent out to all students with respect to our plans for final assessments and using an alternative assessment method. As Deputy Principal said, the whole premise of the whole thrust was based on the principles of integrity, fairness, equity and inclusiveness, ethics and safety, and preservation of regionality. Just to reiterate that we've extended the teaching time to facilitate this adaptation to this new online environment. And so teaching now ends on May 8th. Our examination period goes from May 25th to June 19th. And as Deputy Principal indicated, we've gone through a series of intense discussions, going through each and every course, working through alternative assessment methods. So I just want to remind students that if you all haven't accessed that communique, that you all should try and do so and pay attention to some of those details. We will be providing further details as time progresses. Let me just open the floor with 3 questions. The first question is one that we saw coming up over and over, and it's really how will we be assessed for finals given the constraints and struggles of online teaching? And we know that this is a very real concern. You would have seen, even while we participate in this meeting, we would have been experiencing different types of technical issues. And because of that, we had a whole session, as we said earlier, of working with faculties, each department, each lecturer going through their course and working through alternative assessment methods, extending the period through by which you have to submit the final assessment, and those details will be provided as we move through the next 2 weeks. The other question that was very prevalent is what will become of semester 3? And as Deputy Principal indicated, we do have a summer session planned. Those dates from the 22nd of June to the 21st of August. And we've actually extended the period. Initially, we worked with a 6-week period, and now we are looking at a 7-week period. And so we will be running the programs that are required for a trimester, the Senate approved courses that require a trimester to finish, as well as other programs, other courses, sorry, that students need to graduate. Before I move on, let me just welcome our current Guild President, Justin Subero, who's on with us right now, on our incoming Guild President, Warren Anderson, who's also part of the panel of persons who are here to answer and address your concerns. Let me ask Deputy Principal if there's anything you wanted to add to that question about assessment of finals, given the constraints and struggles of online learning.
Thanks, Registrar. So basically, I could repeat what I said in my brief presentation, in that we cannot have face-to-face exams. We need to have some other form of assessment, alternative assessment. And we have asked the departments and the lecturers to come up with alternative assessments, and the lecturers were quite creative in coming up with assessments that could fairly assess these students. And I mentioned some of those assignments, projects, take-home exams, open book exams, essays, and so forth. The idea behind this is that it's going to be asynchronous. So we'll be given a particular time period, anywhere between 2 to 7 days. For some faculties, it could be even longer. So students are given enough time so they could download the assignment from MyLearning, do the assignment, and then upload the assignment. So if there is any issues with connectivity in terms of internet, at least they have that period to upload their projects. I think basically this is what I need to say at this point in time. Thanks, Registrar.
Thank you, Deputy Principal. And the questions are coming in very fast and furious. And I wanted to quickly switch to some of the questions that we got from our live online audience. The questions, one of the first questions was, when are postgrads allowed to start testing in the labs? I mean, I could say right off the bat that right now we are following the strict guidelines from the government, where schools and tertiary level institutions fall into that category, have to remain closed till the end of April. I will, however, ask the Director of Graduate Studies to quickly, very, very briefly say what are some of the alternative arrangements that are being made for postgrad students that have to complete this kind of work as part of their assessment for their degree.
Thank you. Thank you, Campus Registrar. We are liaising with the individual faculties. There are faculties where the students have to get into a lab and do the research. And as you rightly said, until April 30th, we won't be able to do that. But after April 30th, we will see if we can have staggered entry, not too much of a crowd into the lab. And if they have to graduate early, like the final year students and so on and so forth, they will be allowed, in a staggered manner. And that is the plan for now, but we will be able to finalize everything only after April 30th. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Another question that came, will students be required to pay the full amount of fees for the summer semester? How would payments be conducted? May I ask the bursar to treat with this question, Mrs. Taylor-Hannah?
Good afternoon, colleagues. With respect to the fees for the semester, the fees for the summer semester would remain the same as the fees that are accorded for the summer semester. So there's no change there. But with respect to the payment types, we have over the years instituted a number of mechanisms to allow a student to pay online and electronically. And we are grateful that in this season, those mechanisms will kick in. So you can pay through your banks in the normal way that you used to. You can pay through TouchNet on the internet. We can do that as well. And we have set up Republic Bank as a payee on UE as a vendor on Republic Bank. We are just about to finalize testing that. So very soon you'll also be able to go online at Republic Bank and settle your fees. So we're hoping that you will use one of those mechanisms to settle your fees in this season. We're happy to receive your fees. Thank you, Registrar.
Thank you, bursar. A question about the fidelity of exams, no supervision or online proctoring. the issue with the proctoring, as was indicated, we're moving to an asynchronous model in terms of examinations and final assessments. And so students will be getting a final assignment, and they will have a period from minimum 24 hours to 2 weeks to complete that and submit it. And so therefore, within the process, there would be inbuilt systems to secure, to ensure that there isn't cheating, to avoid plagiarism, etc. So we are conducting these final assessments under the same guidelines that we will normal exams, in terms of even access for remark, etc. I would ask Nadia to say something very, very briefly. Nadia Thomas Alain, she is the Assistant Registrar in charge of examinations, and she could very briefly reassure students in terms of the safety and security of examinations or final assessments.
Thank you, Registrar, and good evening to our students. Good afternoon to our students. So just to add to Campus Registrar's comment, the assessment regulations will continue to oversee all of our alternative assessments. And in this particular case of take-home assignments and other alternatives, the plagiarism regulations are uppermost in practice for these assignments in terms of maintaining the integrity of the examinations process. Also, examiners would have taken into consideration that when students are taking home examinations and so on, and doing open book examinations, all of the ideas about integrity were meticulously discussed and taken into consideration with those alternative assessments. Thank you, Registrar.
Thank you, Nadia. A comment/question. It's so unfair lecturers are still taking attendance from online classes via Zoom for marks, even when there are people who have problems with internet connection and can't attend every class. We're asking that you please send that kind of information to us, so, along with the name of the course, etc., so we can look into it. I know Deputy Principal is very, very concerned about fairness and equity during these times. We are all concerned about it. And so therefore, we would really like to know that our students are really getting the best type of support that's necessary. Another question about registration for semester 3 and when that will be open. I will ask the Deputy Campus Registrar to just say something very briefly about registration for semester 3 and how that's going to be affected.
Thank you, Registrar. Afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon to our beloved students. As you said, that we are just about working out or finalizing the summer session, which is going to be started from the 22nd of June. Registration, as per normal, will open 1 week before teaching begins. And therefore, that is going to be published very, very soon. Registration again will be online, and the students could go on once the faculty has indicated to us the courses which are going to be offered. As per usual, that will be published on our website and also included so that they can continue their registration. Yes?
Okay, thank you. I have a couple questions here about clinicals and for those programs that have clinicals attached to them. Nursing students at FMS wanting to know how this is going to be done and how it will be completed. Students who have internships as part of semester 3 and how that will be treated. Deputy Principal, can you say something very briefly? I know that we're still working through the FMS alternative assessment methods, but can we say something briefly about this and where we've reached in the process?
Thanks, Registrar. So no firm decision has been made as yet. It's a complicated matter. in terms of running clinicals and internships. So the Faculty of Medical Sciences is still looking at possibilities. So they are supposed to get back to us sometime soon. So at least we could communicate with the students about what we hope to do. Thank you.
Thank you. A question about, will the grading be the same as usual for this semester? Alternative assessment methods are good, but the mental strain of dealing with the pandemic must be taken into account. And on that, that issue, we are saying that the grading scheme would be fair, and it would follow the guidelines of integrity and equity. It would also ensure that we meet all of the university's guidelines and standards in terms of quality. And so it would be very, very transparent, and all with the view of understanding that we have that students are under tremendous mental strain. A question which is related, and I'm going to ask Dr. Chinyinki to deal with it, is in implementing all of these changes, how are you dealing with students' mental health and the lack of equal access to resources? It's not an even playing field. Dr. Chinyinki, are you on? Can you address this?
Yeah. Basically, we are offering counseling full-time. We're keeping our same opening hours. We're reaching out to students either by telephone, or for those that can do things like Zoom or Skype, we use online platforms. It's really hard to reach out to students who, I guess, don't have internet access or telephone, but for those that are having trouble accessing any of those that we know about, obviously we're referring them to DSSD, that's dealing with hardware and internet issues as best they can. We're partnering with marketing to reach out to students, promoting the service, promoting the email to contact us, and so on. And so that's what we're doing at the moment. When possible, we want to try and do some group bits where we can reach out to students who would be interested maybe in the upcoming exams to try and address those exam-related issues.
Thank you so much. A question, and I'm going to ask Prof. Harry to address this. When are PhD vivas going to be held? I've submitted since December, and I have no word on examinations.
Thank you, Registrar. We are getting queries on this, and we have already worked on a paper of a three-tier system for PhD remote teleconferencing examination. One is a de facto where that's not possible with the current situation. The second one is online PhD examination with a proctor wherever the student is, even if they are in a different country. We can ask the student to go into a university campus, and with one proctor in the room, maintaining distance, we can conduct the exam. And the third one is if even these two are not possible, we have also as for a student alone being in a room with some guidelines which have to be stringently followed. We have sent this to the PVC of Graduate Studies, and he has agreed to actually approve of it. And we will be sending all the the information to the students who are awaiting exams. Once we liaise with the department and the examiners when they are available, we will let the students know about it. So we are not stopping anything. We are going ahead with the remote online PhD Viva examination. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Hari. A question for Dr. Charles, Director of Student Services and Development. How would regional students be able to get the things they left on hold when they had to leave?
Thank you, Registrar. Good afternoon, colleagues, and good afternoon, students. The things that were left on hold are all secured. The approach we'll use, if you could just email Mr. Snaggs or your hall supervisor or manager stating your room number, reminding us of your room number and the possessions, and also stating once we resume whether you'll be joining us or whether you're in final year. So we will deal with it on a case by case, but we will secure and find measures and find ways of getting your belongings to you or advising you how these will be handled.
Thank you, Dr. Charles. Another question, and this you may actually have to jump in and answer this question again, Dr. Charles. I need to be sure how the semester is planned because I intend going home to see my family. Also, my visa has to be renewed before September. I know that you help students in terms of renewals of visas, etc. And these are different times. On the planning of the semester aspect of it, I know that right now we're working through what September is going to look like for the university. A lot of universities across the world are working through those same issues. We're not sure what's going to be our situation in terms of requirements to either to stay close or not. And so we are still now in the planning of what September is going to look like. But just to ask Dr. Charles just to touch a little bit on the kind of support we give to students when it comes to visas and support with immigration.
Okay, again, thank you. In terms of immigration, the National Security Minister in many of his conferences has assured us that that will not be an issue. There will not be no penalties for visas that have expired. And I'm quite sure that will be extended to our students. We will also compile a list. I'm going to have Dr. Huggins speak to that, of the students and the various visa dates and which ones that have expired or will soon expire. And we will definitely deal with that as a group, as opposed to the students having to deal with it on their own. I'll have Dr. Huggins coming as well to say something on that. Thanks.
Okay, good afternoon. We are being guided by the Immigration Division of Trinidad and Tobago. We have reached out to students who are still on hold to get a sense of their times of expiration of either their landing stamps or their visas. We have asked the managers on hold to send us a list of those students and their dates, and we will speak with students one-on-one. We will normally liaise with the Division of Immigration so that students don't have to worry. We will do all that liaising and we will organize when that time comes for them to go down to immigration. As Dr. Charles has indicated, all visas and landing stamps have been extended. There would be no penalties. So for now, students are okay. And as soon as we get further information from immigration, we will be sharing with students.
Thank you, Dr. Charles and Dr. Huggins. A question on summer practicum. How will summer practicum be treated given all agencies are closed? Are alternative measures being considered, as well as to ensure no delay for final year social work students? Deputy Principal, I know I don't want to throw you back to your ACWA experience, but.
Right, I want to go back there. But we are looking at cases like those, and there's a provision that we could assign an incomplete grade I, and once conditions improve, the student will be given time to complete those practicums and internships and so forth. Thank you, Registrar.
Okay, thank you, DP. A question about the whether the administration of the university is taking into consideration the period for submission of final exams in relation to multiple subjects. Now, this is a question that we are dealing with right now because we are working through the development of a timetable to share with students that will take all of these things into consideration using the principles of the assessment guidelines that speak to 2 assessments on one day, no more than 2 assessments on one day. I can ask AR Exams to briefly say something, because I know just this morning we had there was a robust discussion on the shaping and finalizing of this final exam calendar for students. Nadia, are you able to just say something very, very briefly on it? I know we are not finalized as yet.
Yes, thank you, Registrar. And we will want to assure students that, just as Registrar said, we are taking into consideration the fact that you are now required to do multiple assignments for one course to replace that one final exam that you would have had. And of course, these assignments will carry different durations in terms of submission dates. And we are taking all of that into consideration under the general principles that normally apply to your face-to-face examinations, where you would not be required to do more than 2 exams in one day. So we are trying not to have 2 overlapping assignments, due dates, and we are looking at general principles such as not more than 3 back-to-back exams, and even that will be a lot now, so we are trying to avoid that. So this is to assure students that in considering the campus timetable for alternative assignments and assessments, we are taking your interests at heart and in developing this mammoth campus timetable. Thank you, Registrar.
Thank you, Nadia. There's a question on library access. I've been asking about library access, but I'm getting no response, and it's unfortunate that you aren't. But I know our campus librarian, Mr. Frank Sudin, has been working tirelessly to ensure that there's equity in terms of access for students. Frank, are you able to answer that question in terms of how students are able to access library resources?
Thank you, Registrar, and it's an excellent question, a question that we anticipated for quite some time now. And I just want to assure the students that we, the librarians and the entire library staff, are very much committed to providing that continuing support during this particularly difficult period, especially in the lead up to the alternative assessments and completion of coursework and so on, as the case may be. So we have long switched out most of our resources to online mode. So those databases that we have, which include electronic books, e-journals, and so on, they're all readily available to students. We have, over the last 2 weeks, we have expanded the content that is available on the library's website as well. And tomorrow, what we are planning to do is we're going to create a document, a PDF document that has several links on it that will be provided to the students so that they can access these resources via the internet. Now, we recognize as well that there are students who may not have internet access, and those are the ones who would normally come into the library to get access to the internet, to get access to the online resources, or even to borrow a printed book. But because of the season that we're in, and there's no possibility of the students actually coming onto the physical campus, and because of the limitations we have in terms of even scanning material and making it available because of the intellectual and copyright issues, we are about to start working a lot more robustly with the faculty members for the courses that are going to be examined over the next month or so, to ensure that the resources that the students require to complete these exercises are available online and not just in the library and in print mode. We are also working, and we have been working with a number of students, particularly our postgrad students, where we have been setting up virtual consultations via Zoom. So where we walk through, let's say, their thesis, checking with them, giving them advice on, on the referencing and the citations and so on, as well as the formatting of the thesis. And we are also working with undergrad students as well through our online Ask a Librarian service, which if you go onto the library's website, it's just a simple case of clicking that link, Ask a Librarian, and you will basically send an email to a librarian who will respond to you within 24 hours. We are also ramping up our document delivery service as well, so that if students need access to a particular document that is not available on our subscribe or in our subscribe resources, we are very much able to get it from one of our partner libraries, and in this case, mostly the British Library work with to provide that article or paper for the student. So we are working, and we are working every day. The librarians are on board every day, and they're waiting for your queries and to provide the support that we are accustomed giving. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. There are a couple of questions related to bursarial matters, and I'm just going to ask the bursar, Andrea and Kevin, if you can address these questions. One is related to GATE, and I know that GATE is not under our control, but a student is saying that they're not able to access, to get information about what's happening with their submission to GATE. And I know that was something that was actively discussed yesterday. There was another question, and this time, Andrea, in terms of the availability of the cashier to disperse checks, and whether that was still being done.
Okay, thank you, Registrar. To address the two questions, and students who are listening, with respect to GATE, we are very clear that in this season, we don't want anything to hamper the students' capacity to complete the coursework and to do their exam. So in the instances, so we are leaving unfettered access to the online system. We have removed the AR holes, and we certainly won't be putting any AR holes back onto the students' accounts until we get past the ability to write your exam. We know that sometimes the GATE office is unable to process all of the GATE applications, and when the holes kick in because a GATE application isn't completely processed, and that may affect the student. In this instance, we are removing those holes as well to ensure that the student is able to follow through and do their exams. And we will deal with the students one-on-one in terms of completing that GATE process, working with the GATE office, coming up with a payment plan to pay the fees, etc. So we want as smooth a process as possible for the students to get to that exam phase in this current season, most definitely. With respect to the cashier and student payments, what we have been doing in this season is trying our best as possible to move to an online payment mode for students. The difficulty there, though, is that the student must have provided their banking information if they have a bank account, and to provide that information. So in instances where we have that information for the student, or the student has been able to provide it, we have been able to pay directly into the student account, whatever that refund or payment is that we have for the student. With respect to the students for which we can't do that, we've still been running the checks. We have been looking at ways of getting the checks into the hands of the various persons, not just students, but it's a challenge for all of our vendors. Because the students are unable to come to campus, what is going to happen is that those checks are going to be produced, are going to be held until access to campus for students that have checks are available. So we're running the checks, but we can't get them into your hands because of the dynamics. But if you can provide banking information to the student section, we can then process your payment directly to your account. which we have been doing in some of the instances. Thank you, Registrar.
Thank you. Thank you, Busa. A question for those of us who are working as essential workers. Is there anything in place to ensure we are able to attend the online exams? Just a point to note, these are not synchronous exams, and so therefore it's not done in real time. The basis of these final alternative assessments is that there would be an asynchronous process, and so therefore the exam will be uploaded to my e-learning. You download the exam on the date and time that the exam is scheduled, and you have a period of between 24 hours to 2 weeks, depending on type of assessment, and that will be specific to the course to complete it. And this was done in bearing in mind that we have students from all walks of life, students who are working, who are essential workers, who don't have stable internet, etc. And so therefore, that is why we moved to this type of asynchronous assessment. A question for our AR undergraduate studies in terms of status letters and how status letters are being done, if they're still being done. And then there's also, and I know that the Deputy Registrar addressed it very briefly, there's a discussion or a lot of questions about when is registration going to be open for summer session. And I know we're working through those things, but Simone, if you could just answer that question on status letters.
Okay, good afternoon, Registrar. Good afternoon, everyone. So the admissions office is still offering that service, preparation of status letters. Students can send their requests to the email address admis@sta.uwi.edu, and they will be guided accordingly.
Thank you, Simone. Deputy Registrar, do you want to just reiterate what you said about summer registration?
Yes, Registrar. The summer registration opens online 1 week before teaching begins. I think right now we are possibly working with the start of teaching of the 29th of June, I think. So therefore registration will open on the 22nd. And as the Deputy Principal said, and you think you did mention that we are working with giving a 7-week period for summer this year. The registration will open online 1 week before teaching starts. Yes?
Thank you. A question for AR exams and persons on the registry team. I think Deputy Principal, you may want to weigh in on this, but let me ask AR exams. What about students who have been put on warning? What will happen to those students in terms of examinations, and will they need to withdraw?
Thank you, Registrar. Students on warning, once they're on warning, they would not normally be hindered from doing the examinations. So this will apply in alternative assessments. Additionally, to reiterate Deputy Principal's point earlier, we are looking at grading scales that will not hamper or hurt the student during this COVID-19 pandemic. So even if there is a failing grade, it would be a grade that is without penalty, which would not worsen a student's academic standing if they are currently on warning. Thank you.
So if I could add, at the end of this particular semester, semester 2, no student will be placed on warning or RTW because of that failing penalty with the explanation that we're going to apply. Thank you.
A question about applications, and I am asking, and I think it relates to both undergraduate and postgraduate. I'm asking Simone and Prof. Harry to address it. Will applications still be accepted, and how? Would applications still be accepted, And would persons know if they are accepted to the university or not?
Registrar, I could speak to the undergraduate programs. So yes, we are accepting applications as we speak, and persons can submit their applications online via the link on the website, and all supporting documents can also be sent via email to the admissions office. And we have 2 emails that we are using for such documents. Admis again, admis@sta.uwi.edu, and ugapply@sta.uwi.edu. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Registrar. Even for postgrad, we are accepting applications online as we speak. All the details are provided in the website, where they can just go to the application website. They don't need to physically submit any supporting documents. Everything can be scanned and attached to the application. And we are accepting all applications. We are processing it and sending it to the faculties for them to do their selection, apply the selection criteria, and we will continue with the process of accepting applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to reiterate for this, just about the alternative assessment methods. The alternative assessment methods and asynchronous examinations or final assessments means that students will be told to access their exam on a particular day. It's downloaded. They have a period of time from 24 hours. It may be from 24 hours. Some alternative assessments may be longer and more complex. It may be up to 2 weeks. And they are given that period to complete the assessment, to complete the assignment, and then submit it on the due date and time. And so this was done to safeguard against power interruptions, non-availability of internet, not getting a clear block of time to do work. We understand that students are dealing with multiple issues, and so therefore this is why we are proceeding in this way, and this is why we have proceeded in this way. So it's not going to be a timed assessment. It's going to be given to you on a set day, and you have a period to do it. Minimum 24 hours, maximum 2 weeks. So just to reassure students, they are not required, because I mean, that is a question. I've seen at least 100 different iterations of this question, just to reassure students that this is how we are proceeding. We are moving towards having some sort of timetable, 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks before the start of examinations, so that you understand where your assessment falls, or when you'll be able to have access to the exam. But we are not having a synchronous exams at all. We have been very, very firm and clear in terms of the principles that we made these decisions on, that we understand that students have different issues to deal with. We have students who have varying internet connections and power outages, home situations, etc. And so that's why we've moved to this way of assessing for final assessments. Pulling up another question. Okay, there are a number of questions about, and this is a question I'm going to ask Deputy Principal, or actually let me welcome the Head Committee of Deans, Professor Belle Antoine. Thank you for joining us. I know that you had some problems accessing, and we're really glad that you're able to join us on this call. A question, and I know from the academic perspective, you may be able to to address this. What about lecturers who are making their courses more difficult on purpose and refusing to post lecture recordings so that students lose out on the explanations? And Deputy Principal, I know this is not the ethos on which we were making some of these decisions. So I'm asking Head Committee of Deans to just weigh in on this, as well as Deputy Principal.
Thank you, Registrar. I'm getting a recording, so if you just give me a second to try to, I'm not too sure why that voice is coming on. All right, yes. The question about whether it's more difficult, no, it's not a question of more difficult, lecturers wanting to make it more difficult. It's very clear that all of the lecturers, all of the deans, all of the examiners are well aware of the challenges that students face at this point in time, and they are very sympathetic, empathetic to the challenges. Some of them are facing the exact same challenges. The lecturers who have children and they have to be doing their children's homework on the computer at the same time that they're doing their work. So we are all in this together. The issue with whether the take-home assignments are more complex and more difficult, and I know some of my own students have been saying they're afraid of these take-home assignments, especially the longer time you get, is it going to be more difficult, things like that. The fact is these assignments are now going to be not just take-home, but clearly they are open book assignments. So it means that you have all of the materials at your disposal. I can speak with more authority for law, of course. Generally, you are supposed to know the names of the cases, not just identify the issues, but be able to discuss the cases, which you would have done through your own memory. But now you would have all of the law books, all of the cases in front of you to discuss. So clearly, if you're moving away from what we call a timed exam, let's say you got 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, where you didn't have that material, we could give you the traditional exam, which is something that you're familiar with. You have lots of precedent, you have the past papers, which would help you. But once you move away from timed exams and go into open book take-home assignments, BUS itself has said, and we agree with BUS because of the nature of it, that by its very nature, that exam, if we are to maintain integrity, it must be a different kind of exam. So it must be, to quote BUS, a complex exam, which requires high order and so each lecturer, and it is, I have said before, it is not so simple to do even for a lecturer, to create an exam that is not too difficult for a student. We don't want it to be too difficult. We don't want all our students to fail. But obviously, unless we said, well, everybody will get an A, just cut and paste from a book, which then make it no sense at all to even have an exam. We have to be able to create an exam which is more analytical and which tests your critical order skills, something we've always said we wanted to do, but this forces us to do it. So there are many of you probably who prefer to have a timed exam. Let's don't discuss that now. But the fact is, once you have an open book exam, whether it's 24 hours as the registrar correctly indicated, some simple exams could be 24 hours, or whether it's 2 weeks, it would be a different, more analytical skills base that we rely on. I hope that explains it, Registrar.
Thank you, Professor Antwine. And Deputy Principal, before you jump in, I would like if you can also address at the same time what we are doing for students who don't have access to a laptop or any kind of device to do these alternative assessments. I know you've been working on something, so if you can also mention that as well.
Yes, thank you. So we have identified several desktop computers that we're willing to lend to students. We have been working with the Guild and with the Division of Student Services and Development to identify the students. And once we get a request, we are providing those devices to the students. Thank you. With regard to the question about lecturers not recording the lectures, we did ask all lecturers to record the sessions, so students who might have missed those sessions for whatever reason will have access to it. But we do need some details. So once we get details in terms of the courses themselves, we could work with the dean to make sure that those lecturers are made available to the students. During this time, we want to make sure that the students are not disadvantaged in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ramnarine. A question for, and this I know many of us would be able to jump in and try to address this. Some students may have difficulty paying for summer programs and even difficulty paying or completing the payment of some of their semester 2 fees because their parents are being laid off. What is being done with respect to fees, or what is being done to help these students? Deputy Principal, can I ask if you ask Dr. Charles to jump in as well?
Yes, so we do have our hardship grant, and this is administered through through my office, and the Office of the Department of Financial Services will normally do the groundwork in interviewing students. So we do have that provision to help those students who are in financial need. But perhaps Dr. Charles could, and I think Mr. Subasad is on as well, so either of them could add a bit more to what I've said.
Okay, I would also like to suggest that they engage Mr. Kalu from Student Accounts, who could give some advice, maybe on a payment plan and how that could be done and how the payment plans could run to help assist with that as well. That's another avenue that they could, it's a suggestion of a payment plan, and of course, sending requests for case-by-case basis, and it will be examined as Prof said.
Thank you. I see Christy Smith is on, as well as Kevin. Christy or Kevin, would you want to provide any details on this?
Good afternoon. I'm sorry, Kevin, you go ahead. I'll come in after.
Sorry, Christy. Well, Christy and I had actually had, good day, Registrar, sorry, good day, colleagues and all students. Christy and I actually had a conversation this morning about assisting some students, an initiative that was raised by a representative from the Guild. And we were working on assisting some students who are in need. First of all, obviously making the assessment and then working on getting the financial assistance to these students. So we are working on that, and the process more or less would remain the same. Once a student is in need, they can speak with the Office of the DSST through the various channels, and once the assessment is done, we would work on getting the students the funding via their student account or transfers in that regard. Christy?
Good afternoon, colleagues, and good afternoon, students. Just want to start by saying, students, we are thinking about you and we really have not forgotten you. We have been receiving a number of requests from students who are currently on our financial aid programs, and we have reached out to these students to make provisions to ensure that they continue to receive aid for the duration of this semester. With respect to the COVID-related requests for aid, we have been compiling the information. We've been working with Mr. Sachin Duki of the FMS. He has reached out to us, and we, and I believe that's what Mr. Kalu was referring to. We want to commend the Guild, that Guild representative for that initiative. So we are working to provide assistance in various forms. We have partnered with different donors. We have a particular Rotary Club that reached out to us to provide assistance with grocery items, and we are also partnering with the Guild to ensure that we have a collaborative and coordinated response to requests. I must add that requests for aid and assistance at this time. I mean, students, while we really want to help and we will do all that we can possibly do to assist you, the university, of course, has to do that against its resource base. So each request is going to be taken on a case-by-case basis, of course, as we regularly do for the processes with hardship grants and other forms of aid. Send it through our director and, of course, the final arbitrator, the deputy principal. I could pass now on to Mr. Chandar Supasad, who is the Standing Manager of Financial Advisory Services. Mr. Supasad, I'm not sure if you have anything to add.
Yeah, hello, Christy and others. So we have a continuation of our Adopt a Student program, and instead of students receiving checks, physical checks, Christy has worked with the bursary to ensure that these checks are deposited into the students' bank accounts. This applies to both local and regional students, and the end of the semester we'll see the end of that Adopt a Student program for this semester. So we have moved to direct bank deposits. There are a number of students, about 10 of them, who have no bank accounts, and we are still working with the bursary to find out how we could get funding to them. That's it as far as we could talk on Adopt a Student program. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Chanda, Christy, and Kevin. I'm just, we're getting a lot of comments on the fairness of lecturers. A lot of students are commenting that the basic principles and the tenor of fairness, equity, etc., that we spoke about when we started are not being upheld by the lecturers of the various programs. And I want to ask the principal to briefly comment on this. And I also would like to hear from the head of the Committee of Deans, her perspective on it, because I know that this type of feedback will be, definitely taken on board when she meets with her fellow deans. Principal, I'll ask you to go first.
Yes, thank you, Dawn. I have to say I'm quite disappointed to hear this because we've asked lecturers to be very considerate of the circumstances of students in this COVID environment. When you're teaching online, it's a completely different environment. To hear me?
Principal, we want to ask you to repeat, please.
Okay. My mic is showing an exclamation mark, which means it's probably not connecting properly. Are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, good. So I say again that I'm quite disappointed to hear this because lecturers were cautioned that the environment is now a lot different. And once we're continuing to teach and more so teach online, then we have to be cognizant of the circumstances under which students are operating. This is not just teaching online, this is teaching in an emergency environment. So it is more than twice the strain as it would be if it were a completely online experience. The whole approach of recording lectures is generally acknowledged to be an approach that makes it a lot easier to facilitate high quality teaching online. Asynchronous delivery as well, where you record your lectures, you put it on. The lectures are not as if they were front of class, whiteboard or blackboard teaching. but it's one where information is given, and then you use your class sessions as well to discuss the topics so that the learning is much more effective. We will be meeting with staff next week in a staff forum, and I'm going to raise this issue. I'm also going to ask deans to pay attention to complaints from students about delivery styles that have not been adjusted to the online environment, and we will address that matter going forward. That being said, I want to also remind students, and I have to be very cautious saying this, that a lot of the responsibility for exacting the learning from the course lies with you. There's a book that I've used many times with my students with great advantage. They were always very appreciative of it. That spoke to, I think the name of the book, yes, was What Smart Students Know. And basically it was done not just by someone who's pontificating and applying academic approaches to teaching, but actually did surveys among students, and what they found was very interesting. First of all, that to make A's in classes, when they checked the students who were making A's, it wasn't so much the students who had high IQs and the like, it was students who basically applied themselves to the program. I'm not saying that you're not applying yourself. I'm just telling you what the world has seen with respect to matters like this. What that does is you're going to meet lecturers from time to time who find it difficult in communicating information. And I've faced that in my life. And basically, what you do is you say, okay, I'm going to take this strain on my own, mindful of any activity that is counter to what is expected. If that goes to that level, then I have to get involved. But at the same time, what I've found is that when students take that responsibility on their own, you could do whatever. As a lecturer, once I know what the syllabus is and what is expected, I go and I get that information and I deliver. Mindful again of a lecturer who is not really and truly meeting up to their responsibility. So don't take it as me getting down on students, please. It's not that. It's just that it's a two-way street as well. We will be dealing with this issue, especially as it's an emergency situation. We will be ensuring that lecturers do comply as far as possible with respect to what we expect in the delivery of their courses in an emergency remote environment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Principal. Professor Antoine, I know this is something that may have upset you a little bit.
Yes, it does, and also surprises me because I think that the large majority of faculties and lecturers have been doing the opposite, which is to go out of their way to ensure not only that students are comfortable in the environment, and you heard from Deputy Principal that many of us have had to be retrained. And that needed cooperation and goodwill from lecturers, which they gave, and for the most part, if not at all times, without any opposition whatsoever, although it was quite a difficult exercise in some respects. Now, I am not aware that there was a directive about recording, but I would have thought that that was a common sense. Certainly, I can speak with law from even before we started our training. We had already agreed we will record everything. And I have had only one student, and sometimes lecturers forget, and we reminded students. But not only that, and I want to say that our administrative staff as well and the faculties have been playing their part. So for example, our administrative staff was like a database for lectures, so any student could reach out to them and they would send them the lectures and stuff as far as we went, even through on their cell phone, WhatsApp. I'm not familiar with some of these things, but even through phones. And I've also been calling students individually who had problems and so on. I know many lecturers have also told us, try to find out which are the students with issues and try to be proactive. You just heard that there are some spare computers that the university is assisting with. Deputy Principal is helping us with that, and we have also, faculties have also made arrangements. So I am assuming that this is a tiny minority of lecturers who have not recorded and who have, I don't know what the treatment is apart from the recording, but I do know, apart from recording of lectures, that others have gone to great lengths, like in social sciences, We had examples of lecturers who tested the new adjusted exams. They did polls, they did practice runs with their students to make sure before they send proposals of adjustments that it would not disadvantage students, which is very, very commendable. I also want to point out that our librarians have gone not just on the general level, but certainly individual librarians. Again, I can speak with more authority for law, but our law librarian, very early on, we realized that some students, and we know who are the students who are always disadvantaged, I should say, it would be those students with little income. So we always try to reach those first. They're the ones who are using the libraries. So we went as far as putting in extra materials, copying book chapters and so on, which probably breaks some copyright laws, but also getting alternative ebooks with the assistance of our law librarian so that they would have text. So many different measures that lecturers all throughout university have taken. Some may be a little more proactive than others, but I would want to say that it is not a good thing to be learning about this in this forum on April the 23rd, when exams are about a month away. I think you must remember that you have deans and you have heads of department. And I would like to say that I would have hoped that these things would have been brought to the attention to your heads of department, your lecturers, first of all, of course, but your heads of department and then deans, to give them the opportunity to treat with them, because this is what deans and heads of departments are expected to do in the governance structure. So let us hope that this is happening. If that has not been brought to their attention, let us give them the opportunity today and tomorrow to rectify that. But I hope that this is a small minority.
Thank you, Dean. And I know that you're not going to allow this to fall off your radar as head of the Committee of Deans, that you would ensure that it's addressed and it's as quickly as possible.
Of course.
We have a number of questions about mental health and mental health issues and challenges that students are facing. For the persons who just joined, Dr. Chinyanki, can you just repeat how CAPS is helping or how they can access help during these times and what is in place for them?
Hi, sure. The counselors are offering sessions either online or over the telephone. So any interested students, all you need to do is email us. So the email is counselor, COUNSELLOR @sta.uwi.edu. So whether you're new or returning, just email us and we can organize a session for you. I know on the UWI website, there are a number of videos by Khatija Khan, Dr. Khan, also talking about mental health. We have a flyer with study tips. So we are trying to post some support materials on the website as well. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. A question about payment of fees and possibility, Bursa, of a payment plan that looks at 5 or 6 parts to complete payment as opposed to 3, all with a view to helping students transition through this COVID period and post-COVID. Can you address something like that?
Yes, I can. And I want to say to the students that we will make every effort to support them. But we do recognize that the payment for one semester will flow into a payment plan for a second semester. So we want to make it as reasonable as possible. I think I want to ask Kevin Kalu, the manager for financial services for bursary students, to address this issue of payment plans and what they have put in place to support the students through this process. Kevin?
Thank you, Bursa. The team and I have been receiving requests over the past, since this entire situation started, and been trying to deal with it on a case-by-case basis, but also trying to be as consistent as possible in how we allow students to pay. The initial discussions with the deputy principal we had extended deadlines for payments and extended clearances and post-dated AR holds and that kind of thing. And the intention is to also now continue in that vein and give students up until the end of this particular semester and after exams to pay their fees. I'm asking students if they do have critical situations that we already spoke about accessing assistance through DSST, and to email us at the student account registry at the designated email addresses with their particular situations, and we can see how best we can deal with it on a case-by-case basis. But at the same time, try to be consistent across the board and fair to all students, understanding that this is a very difficult situation for all students. That would be my comment on that.
Thank you, Kevin. Question to Prof. Harry. Would students be given extensions on their thesis deadlines? And corroborating question, since if they're given an extended deadline, would they have to pay tuition fees for September, given the current situation?
Thank you, Registrar. We have already circulated the information that all projects, including masters and as well as PhD MPhil, the deadline is extended to December 18th. And I cannot exactly say that, the fee should be paid or not. It all depends on whether they, if that alone is pending, then they can get an exemption. They have to say that, that is the only thing pending for them. In that case, we can ask the bursary to exempt. But, if they have other things pending, I can't be able to guarantee that. So all submissions, the deadline has been extended to, December 18th. And as I am here, although I went through the questions, I just wanted to say about the award of degrees too. We are working on it, and our staff members are now physically getting into their office to get the information, and they are working from home. I'm getting all the information through email, and we are working on award of degrees who have already completed their MPhil PhD. So that is from Graduate Studies. Thank you, Campus Registrar.
Thank you, Prof. Harry. A question about student the registration. Would students be deregistered if they do not make the necessary payments by the stipulated date of payment extension? I know, as Lucia said earlier on, the AR holds will not be placed back on until after the end of the examination period. Let me just ask the bursar and the deputy principal to just say something very briefly about the registration in terms of payments. Deputy principal.
Yeah, thanks, Registrar. So we do not want to deregister any student. So what we'll do is work with the student to come up with some type of arrangement where the fees could be settled. If we have to extend the period of time, we'll do that. We could also try to assist the student financially once they qualify for financial assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Principal. Bursar, do you want to add to that?
Not anything particularly in addition, but I do recognize that once a student misses a payment, the second semester bills will add up and it becomes even more difficult for the student so you can't prolong it forever. But we're saying, we're working with you. We will come up with an arrangement for you to repay your course fees. We will support you through the process as best as we can in this season.
Thank you. And there's a related question in terms of, well, not related to the payment, but they all speak to the issue of internships, the availability of secondary schools to complete the diploma of education, the internships for the tourism programs, the internships in science and technology, and how that will be treated. Deputy Principal, I know we looked at all of this last week, asking if you could just speak very briefly to some of these requirements for graduation and how they will be treated.
Sure. So we did look at that in quite a bit of detail. And in fact, the faculties came up with some really good suggestions. But for some programs, it's going to be really difficult, almost impossible to complete those internships or curricula during this time. So what the departments have agreed to do is recommend an incomplete grade of I. And once conditions normalize, the students should be able to complete that, and then a proper grade will be placed. So the I will be the holding grade for this point in time, and students will be given some extra time. Usually it is until the end of the following semester in order to complete the project or the internship or the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. In terms of we've been getting a lot of questions on FMS exams and what are the plans for examinations in FMS. As we said before, and I'll repeat it for persons who would have just joined, the Faculty of Medical Sciences, they are finalizing the alternative assessment methods right now. And so once that is completed, we would share, it will be shared in terms of how that will be approached. That faculty is operating across the regions, across campus approach. And so therefore the thinking through the various permutations with respect to that is still occurring. So just to reiterate, those have not been finalized in terms of an alternative assessment method. Students have also asked about award of degree and the timing and whether it would still be done and when they will get their letters. So I don't know if, can Nadia address that please in terms of award of degrees? I know we are still operating and processing these kinds of requests online. Nadia?
Thank you, Registrar. And yes, to our students, once the final assessments are completed, we will move ahead working remotely to ensure that the rest of the process takes place in terms of upload of marks and Board of Examiners meeting and finalizing your grades and in fact awarding degrees, which is the business of the Board of Examiners. So yes, those things will continue as long as students complete their assessment. And just to answer your last point there, Registrar, in terms of students who were completed before and were awaiting awards and for one reason or another had not yet received the award by the time we close, that is continuing as well remotely. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to add another question before we start to wind down. I know we have 15 more minutes left in our session. I just one of the questions was, can the campus address the landlords on behalf of students to lower rental fees since we aren't occupying space? I know we have an accommodation office under the director, Dr. Charles of Student Services and Development. Dr. Charles, can you briefly say if that was something that can be done?
This one is a bit tricky because the landlords, there's no affiliation really, formal affiliation with the university. It's a personal arrangement between the student and the landlord. But we could always support the student. If the student is having an issue, they could always write, send us an email, write, and contact us, and we could speak to the landlord on their behalf. We do not have a problem supporting them in that way at all. So if there's an issue, just shoot us an email, what the issue is, the landlord's number, name, etc. And we can make a call or some kind of intervention and just speak to the landlord to see if they will allow them, give them an extension. We can do that on their behalf.
Thank you. We have a question about students with that are challenged or students with disabilities. And I'll ask Dr. Huggins to briefly address it. What considerations are being given to these students with respect to final examinations?
Okay, so just as we would normally do, students with disabilities or medical conditions will normally liaise with our department in terms of approval of accommodations as well as accommodations during exams. We have been doing that for students for midterms, and we will continue to do that for final exams. However, I'm still to have a discussion with Dr. Sutherland and with HSU in terms of students having medicals, submitting medicals and getting it approved. So I would like students with disabilities or medical conditions to please contact me, 792-7622, or my email, jqueline.huggins@gmail.com. At sta.ue.edu. One issue I want to bring to light is that students with extra time have some concerns whether they will get their extra time. So I'm asking the dean when she's speaking to academic staff for them to get an understanding that students who have approved accommodations must still be given those approved accommodations.
Thank you, Dr. Huggins. Deputy Principal, I'm going to ask you again to repeat what you've said with respect to diploma of education students, the students who have internships, the students who have those activities that would require them going out in the community that would not allow them to go out in the community because of these situations. How will they be treated with? Can you just, I know I'm asking you this for the third time, but just
that's okay. It's a very important point. So we've spoken with the departments. It is really difficult, what I said before, impossible to complete some of these internships and so forth. So what the department recommends and what we support is we assign an incomplete grade to those courses and internships and so forth. And once conditions normalize and internship can be completed, they will be completed, and then an appropriate grade will be assigned. Once we assign an incomplete grade, the student will have until the end of the following semester not to complete the internship. So this is how we intend to approach that issue and solve that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Principal. A question about medicals and the procedure for courses that medicals were accepted for. Can the student do the course for free during the summer school session? Deputy Principal and Bursa, I can answer that. But
yeah, all right. So they would have submitted a medical. So what we do allow is students to write the exam at the next available sit-in. And I believe that considering all circumstances at this point in time, we should allow that. Although summer semester is meant to be an income generating and self-financing semester, but in the interest of the student, we'll see. In fact, I think we should allow students to be able to sit that exam once that course has been run in summer. Thank you.
okay, just to reiterate though that while we be moving into a summer session, the details in terms of the specific courses that are going to be available are still being worked out. It may not be a typical summer session. We know for sure we'll be running the courses that have within it, programs that have within it inbuilt third trimester. And so therefore that we would be sharing with the students over the next 2 weeks, all the details with respect to the summer session and the programs that will be available. A question about how students could submit requests for consideration of double majors, etc. As was indicated before, we are operating an online system, and the URAR indicated that these requests can be emailed to her. Simone, can you just repeat the email address and some of the services you're going to be offering online?
Thanks, Registrar. So we continue to provide status letters to students. We continue to treat with requests, like you said, to change majors, minors, what you call it, their status, part-time to full-time, full-time to part-time, etc. And they can send such requests, the students can send such requests to admis, ADMIS, at sta.uwi.edu, and they will be treated with.
Thank you, Simone. Well, we're nearing the end of our session. I just want to take this opportunity to remind all of us on this attending this session that we're all in this together, and that the university is working to ensure the success of all our students, and we're doing what we can to get them through, to get you all through to the end, to the finish line. I know that persons jumped in to the session at various points, and what we'll be doing is a wrap-up communique to all students, just advising them of the issues that were addressed, and you know, where the points of contact and the places that they could go for help and for information. To remind students of the exam dates from the 25th of May to the 19th of June. And the fact that that we are working through an exam timetable, which will be shared with students over the next 2 weeks. Just to remind students of the availability of mental health support. As Dr. Chinyonki indicated, they are open, they are doing phone sessions, online sessions, and they are still open for business. Our applications are still open for postgraduate and undergraduate, and we're having entrance committee meetings. We are responding to queries, and we are asking that you continue to follow our social media platforms for updates. You will visit the COVID website, which you can access from the St. Augustine UE page, and you would be receiving updates over the next 2 weeks as we go along. Principal, we have 6 minutes. I'm going to just hand over the floor to you to say some closing comments.
Fine. Thank you, Dawn. I've been quite impressed with the questions that have come. I'm really glad that we had this virtual town hall meeting. I just wanted to reassure students that we are looking after their best interests. We are challenged, but we have decided that we will take up that challenge to ensure that our obligations to you are fulfilled. I saw one question that said something to the effect of why are we doing this? We are doing this because we are looking at your life after COVID. You need to be prepared for what is ahead, and what is ahead is very uncertain. And so it's best to go in there armed as best as you could to meet a very uncertain future. I will honestly also say that we also have some concern, of course, for the future of UE itself. UE, as you know, is a top-ranked institution, top 4% globally. we have to maintain that ranking. We are in the Caribbean. We're the only one with that ranking, that higher ranking in the Caribbean. And the world is not kind, has not been kind to institutions that slipped in the past. In that future, we will have to make certain adjustments. The questions today treat with the short-term sort of horizon. What happens for this semester? What happens into summer? What happens into semester 1 of next year? I want to reiterate that we will be approaching students to join us, to collaborate in describing what the future scenarios could be, and also in defining and designing the approaches that we would take in meeting those scenarios to make sure that our society survives, that our university continues to support those societies going forward. I want to wish you, students, and those staff who have taken part in this exercise today, thank you so much for your contributions. I want to wish everyone and their families a very good evening, and I implore you to please keep safe, continue to exercise your protocols, make no slip. This enemy that we're fighting is very, very, very sneaky, very insidious. Make no slips, continue to exercise your protocols. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Principal. And so let me formally close this session off. As I said before, moving forward, we are so happy for your feedback, for your candor. We've taken everything that you said into consideration. We've tried to address all the questions that we were able to pull from the online chat. We will do a wrap-up communique and send it out. And I want to underscore Professor Copeland's plea that we all stay safe, we stay at home, and we observe the protocols and that we have to do to ensure the safety of ourselves and our family. So good afternoon, good evening, and thanks again for joining us.